Welcome, 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 everyone, to the new teaching show. Today I'm joined by Dale, Tobin. Laura and Maty are one is lost in the tube and the other is out in the forest. So take it as they will, but they are traveling, and it's going to be just Dale and I today reviewing Galactic History Part Two. Dale, Tobin, once again, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's show. And this is a personal favorite for mine because this is one of the materials I found Andrew through the Galactic History. I believe it was part 13 or part 12. But it's the last episode we did when we went through part one. There was just so much more layers added and added to it. And I'm really excited for this show. And for questions as well, type your questions into the chat. If you want to ask Andrew or me a question, just drop it in the chat.
So I think was it 4 or 5 months ago when we were having one of our team meetings in the background, and I think it was Joel said, "Why don't you do a review show?" And then Dale was like, "Let's do review Galactic History."
Yes.
Okay, and I'm like, "Great idea!" So we are now doing part two. You can go to the YouTube channel and find part one. It will be titled "Reviewing Galactic History Part One" with all of our names in there. It should be easy to find. So this is going to be episode two. So Dale, what does galactic history mean to you as the new person? Not everybody listened to galactic history that got them into me. Some people came from revocation. Some people came from completely different directions. The ayahuasca communities, the reading shows that went up that had nothing to do with the history. So how did the history, galactic history, affect you?
It affected me greatly because it was just a full setup of what the reality is like and what happened before. Because for me, I felt like I was lost in the memory, what happened before my lifetime, what's gone on here, and listening to the information and all of those the hours and hours it is. There's so much truth to it. And when I first listened, all back then in 2013, there was such truth to the information, and there was that discernment turning on and actually understanding this is true frequency, because you can tell when someone's just making shit up. But when you listen to the Galactic History, you can just hear it in Andrew. There's true authentic frequency, and it changed my life in a way because it made me get a session with you. It made me realize about all the timelines, made me realize about self-healing, self-nurturing, and how important that is. So it's all in there. There's so much in there, confined into that space of galactic history. And listening back to it from the last show, it feels like every time I listen to it, there's different information what comes to me now because I'm a different person. So the person back then was listening to the galactic history, to the person now, it's like a complete new show again, because I'm hearing information I never heard before, or I wasn't ready to listen to that information. And obviously,
Uh-huh.
working with Andrew and listening to his teachings for a lot longer, I'm able to understand the information a lot easier now. So it's a lot different, the person back then listening to now. And these shows are incredible because the last time there was a lot of cricket moments, because as we were listening to it and you were talking about it, Andrew, you're adding more and more different aspects to it, new
Right.
teachings and what you were going through then, because I do enjoy listening to your experience as well, how it was for you when you were doing it, what was going on. And I think everyone likes that story experience as well.
Wonderful. And since I've done the first review, it has been a while since I've watched some of these episodes. Let's say a year and a half, maybe, since I've watched, maybe a little longer, maybe a year and 3/4, but not much longer than that since I've listened to the whole set. And I generally listen to it once or twice a year in the previous parts. And what am I listening for? How I've changed. And so it's a different form of review when I can review the me of then and the frequency that I emitted then to the frequency that I emit now. And there's a fun compare and contrast energy. Okay? Because so much of the teachings are just in this 20 episodes or in Living the Mystical Life Daily. That's how you put it all together. There's the healing growth side, and then there's the spiritual reality of a multidimensional, multi-social being. You don't have to be just social in this reality. You can be social in many realities and it not be turned toxic on you.
And that's it. And like listening back, Andrew, and for those listening who haven't watched the Galactic History. I highly recommend you take your time to watch it. Grab a notepad, and start writing down notes as well. For me,
Okay.
it was a marker stone, that Galactic History, and something I revisit, and something to be very proud of. Andrew, it was incredible, and the whole setup and frequency and just all of it. It really did a lot for me in regards of me stepping up myself to want to elevate myself. It wasn't just me listening to instant gratification stuff. It was showing me what I needed to fix within myself, what my signature frequency was back then, and how I can grow and relate to the history as well for my own change.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dale, let's get started. And we'll remind everybody, if you have questions, go on into the chat room, type them in. We will also answer them. So we'll be playing and pausing the video as we go, as Dale wants to ask questions, or I want to add something on top of what's there before a certain section pauses. So, all right, let's get started here.
Okay, we're back. This is part two. This is Lance White with Andrew Bartzis.
How you doing?
And we just left off talking about the Lemurian air cities, leapfrogging into the future to make corrections.
Mhm.
So maybe we can pick up where we left off.
Okay. Lemurian air cities are a local reality that literally is in the air. But in between the cells of every atom is an infinite amount of space. So an air city can be out of reality in between the cells of the Earth and still be an air city out of phase of reality. So when they began to create dimensional drives that created time travel effects, the air city would go into Earth and then time travel that piece of rock and then come back into the air so that they can influence the timeline on a soul family level and on a DNA level. The people in the air city were looking for versions of themselves to correct. Some of them may have gotten darkness instilled into them. They would do healings on different people. They would, at times, literally create an invasion force because at the time the dark would have had the planet. Leapfrogging through time, making corrections in a system.
So there is where I talk about time, leapfrogging through time. And this leads up to probably remote assassination, worldwide global remote assassination. What do you remember about this opening part here, Dale? Here, you have questions for it?
Yeah, so when you're talking about these Lemurian air cities, and you're talking about themselves having other parts, like darker parts, you meaning their multi-dimensionality, like there's a part of them here and there's a part of them in this not galactic essentially, part of them here now as humans.
So, in the reference to that conversation, it was in the ancient past in which beings would live in the air city, teleport into space between a rock, take on a linear form of time, transmute themselves from ethereal and solar particles into Earth-based particles that shared a frequency of time that could then search the world for versions of itself in the linear time history and make changes to a variety of linear time history as to the types of choices and concepts that it did to lead it towards the right path of what they thought was, what they wanted out of their growth. So they had full manipulation of their lineage. So if they made a mistake, they could go back and fix it.
Okay. So is this Lemurian air city still there and still doing the same type of stuff?
So here's when I get into the really complex part of timeline assassination and the four timeline paradoxes, because these are a key central understanding of why these paradoxes reoccurred. All right, go ahead and play. We're going to play until the 5 minute and 50-second mark.
System where you have 5,000 other species creating time travel effects. It isn't easy. So you need a lot of cities to continually counter this. Where we are right now 2011 to 2014, every single bit of the time warp is about right now. It's about propaganda coming out. Propaganda that's thousands of years old, hundreds of years old, millions of years old. This propaganda influences the awakening, which is the end of the process where we must have graduation timeline. Absolutely, it's the Prime Creator's will. So, what is a Lemurian air city? A group of people come together, unmanifest physical bodies, and with that energy create a very dreamlike reality. And that dreamlike reality takes form in the upper atmosphere where the Aurora Borealis is. The Aurora Borealis is the Earth's dreamtime sentience, and it's where the sun brings energy to it so that that system of energy has reality behind it. The ship, the city itself, has its own version of a unity conscious drive where it can go to any part of the galaxy or any part of the universe as long as they can remote view or remote experience those other places. After Lemuria went through its first fall and went to its raise again, we go from, we'll call it 30 million years, simply because they had to leapfrog backwards and they had to leapfrog forward. Then they had to figure out each time Earth was teleported, the old timeline wars ended because the XY axis of where the planet was could no longer be used as a function for creating a timeline.
Right.
But the sentience that was part of the old timeline was still on the Earth, and Earth adopted those as new first species. Those new first species became part of the Lemurian society and left. When they left, they migrated away and became part of the polluted reality that was out there with drama and got forced back here. This is this endless come and go from Earth. Lemuria's second raise, where it fell and it raised, as the air cities figured out this timeline between here, this time stream between here and here, in this light part of vibratory space, they could try to push out as many of the negative incarnating souls that were being forced at us from as many as 6,000 or 7,000 other planets that were under domination and control.
Wow.
Take a pause here.
That's a big job.
So I was a minute early. So this is the introduction of how forced incarnation is taking over the world here. It's been a spiritual warfare, and that they need to outbreed us in the astral worlds. And that's why their Archon system was created.
So when these Lemurian air cities were created, Andrew, was that the purpose of them to be able to go back and forward in time and start clearing out the timeline wars?
They were originally created before any wars had happened. They were in creation already, so that you could manipulate your linear time in multiple realities. Earth was special because it could have 8,400 separate facets of reality with their own unique frequency of time. Okay, that has above, below, and within. Okay, so the surface world, the astral world, and the hollow earth world each have their own unique galactic signature frequency of time, and then a local time that's stamped to the outside edges, the surface population. Okay, so air cities were a way for surface population to raise frequency and enter the air cities, and then travel to the galaxy anywhere, as long as they could remote view or could remote experience a place, they could teleport there.
Do they teleport to the Dreamtime Awakening at all, or are they not allowed to do that?
Good question. They did not know there was a great Dreamtime Awakening. They didn't know any of that. They just knew they had needed to go beyond all predicted future. Well beyond it. No doubt about you're in unpredictability scenario. Like
And that was obviously
100,000 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing with the level of chaos back then and what was happening, it was hard to kind of see the future like that and see what was going to happen. Yeah, like a soup.
Yep. And that's the main purpose that the air cities developed into, They basically became leapfrog points where trillions of the population who were caught in in linear times that got disconnected had to get out of the way into a connected reality. So the etheric transference between teleported when the Earth would teleport from one solar system to another, a galaxy to a galaxy, it would take up a new linear frequency, and the old linear frequencies didn't work anymore. So you needed to have the souls how to get to and from those places because they were displaced. That's why we have a Mandela effect for those in the land of the forgotten, the ones that did not get a chance to make it to Lemurian Air City and teleport to the ancient future, and then continue to leapfrog into that unpredictable future. And imagine trillions and trillions of beings caught out of time, and thus that's what the Air Cities developed into rescue systems. As a time erasure wave tries to erase them.
And what's it like now with these air cities and the timeline wars? I know obviously the Earth's fortified and a lot's changed since back then. What's it like at the moment?
There are no air cities here now. If there were, there'd be a radically different place. The appearance of one air city represents a massive change in Earth's natural vibration. And anything that can't handle the change of vibration or the new vibration will not live here. It'll be like a dog shaking off water off of its fur.
So what's the difference between the air city and an astral realm?
The air city exists in all realms. It's an
Okay.
anchor point between all realms and allows a single consciousness to have portal to all the realms and learn rapidly multidimensional living.
Okay.
Once again, learning multidimensional living. That's what Air City's original purpose was for. Fix the mistakes that you made and learn how to be as sociable as a soul as you could possibly be. All right, does anybody have any questions from the chat room?
Yeah, we've got a few questions, so I'll read a few out. So don't think it makes sense to start, but so is the going into Earth manifested as Lemurian lines and crystals?
It can be called that, yes. I mean, it's a loose way of explaining it, but yes.
So I remember you saying that you informed a collective that they need to go to billions of years to not the raise a species. Have they completed this now?
No. I'm talking on the show here for the purpose of this show. No,
Okay.
and for the purpose of behind the scenes, no, also. And I said that on purpose because there are behind the scenes shows, things that are going on as I'm reviewing something that I was unexpected to review in reality. It's all right.
Yeah. Maty's here from the tube, guys.
That's why I'm experiencing that. So Maty wasn't allowed to hear that.
No. What was your ears burning?
How are you doing, Maty? Welcome to the show.
I had to break the fourth wall while I was reviewing my own material.
I'm at Finsbury Park at the moment, just about to get on my last train.
Tunnel. We thought you were in a tunnel the whole time.
Yeah, I was on the tube. I'm overground now.
All right. So we're reviewing episode 2. So where did we leave off, Joel?
The Lemurian air seas was the last.
No, at the time.
At the time, sorry.
All right. Now you're going to play until 9 minutes. If I stop you, it's early because I hear something early.
That's a big job. And how successful have they been at it?
Well, we're here now.
Right.
We're here now.
Well, yes. Well, so the really exciting part to me is that all of this has to be wrapped up between 2011 and 2014.
Correct.
So we are in the final.
You have to have graduating students. You have to have graduators.
And what happens to the people who are not quite ready? Is that even an option?
Earth can bilocate and create multiple versions of itself and allow the separation of densities of people that are ready or not.
So that's where you have this concept of different timelines for people who are totally asleep, people who do not want to awaken, who would rather just continue on like this and have an experience of light and dark. So that is a possibility of fracturing.
It's through dream time, though.
Oh.
So we are a unity dream time society. That our world is set up. We have a global dream time.
Okay.
All of our people have a global dream center. We live in sacred geometry cities that prevent us from going into the global dream time.
Okay.
The event is all about us for a brief second experiencing unified global dream time.
Okay.
And the more and more we get exposed to it, the more and more the way people begin to experience synchronicity, deja vu, shared dreams, and then the next layer up of awake people begin to interact with the two and teach, like, you have a kid that has a shared dream with a mother or a father or something to that effect, it spreads. And there's no way the system can stop people sharing that way.
One-on-one.
One-on-one.
Right. Even though there is highly developed technology to observe, monitor, the mind control, and so on and so forth. Now, you mentioned the event. There was a television show that came on and was aired briefly called The Event, about everybody collapsing and unconscious, and they accessed their future lives, and I don't remember the whole story, but it seems like it was a foreshadowing. And doesn't the dark use the Hollywood film industry to see
soft disclosure?
Yeah, soft disclosure. Yeah, so they can say, well, we told them what was coming.
Well, soft disclosure exists for many reasons. At times, it's just a really creative person coming up with an incredible storyline,
right.
And at other times, they're influenced by energy beings that say, do this because it needs it.
Right.
Or you have other people creating things to create disunity and propaganda. We've talked about Nibiru and Planet X. It was a real situation with a planet. It's been moved dozens and dozens of times. We as a species, every time they re-air the series, bring it back. They had to install technology on it that literally keeps it out of phase, so our fear consciousness doesn't re-manifest it.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And why Nibiru? Because in the past, the main domination and control beings had parts of themselves all throughout the timeline that could communicate to the central hive location, because it's all the same being.
Okay.
So 2011 to 2014, there's over 17 million different things that are of these 15 beings. There's 17 million of them now.
Wow. Now, how does that all get resolved? And let's hear more about the event and how that.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
I just described. I'll use this one I used before. You have children sitting at a breakfast table before they have their first period in class. Every school's got that. Yeah. I had a dream that said this, and the kid next, oh my God, I had the same dream. The same kid and the kid over there. That begins the spread worldwide, where kids have technology to share. The adults will experience it differently. They'll experience, the sleep adults will experience deja vu. Let's say you have two people walking the street and one goes, oh my God, deja vu, and at the exact same time the other guy goes, oh my God, deja vu. You have two people going deja vu at the same time, pointing at each other. Something you simply cannot deny, period. Mm-hmm. Just your reality is challenged at that moment. And that's the first part of the event. That gives us the warning that more dream time is coming.
Okay, so
warning.
That was a lot of information in that 4 minutes. Let's unpack that 4 minutes.
I think, like you say, Lance is just like, wow. When you unload that information, and when I was first listening to it, it was just like, wow.
That was at a time no one knew anything about any of this shit. Not like it is today. Maty, if you got signal, what did you think of that episode? That little piece right there.
He's lost in the tube, I think, Andrew.
He's in the tube again.
Yes.
All right, Dale, where do you want to start with that?
So you were talking about the Dreamtime awakening and the event and everything happening in between. And this correlates with what you've said before. So the event's not going to be what we think it's going to be. It's going to be individual for everyone, isn't it? Everyone's going to have such a different, unique experience, not just like a collective shit going on.
Correct.
Yes.
And it's going to start in the dreams and the rememberings and the deja vus. That's when you know it has begun. Okay? And the time between 2011 and 2014 was the battle to get everybody's time travel done. Because there was going to be a barrier, no time travel after that. No significantly changing. That's where the metaphor of the chocolate souffle comes in.
Okay. And for the Archons as well, you mentioned how many millions they had into pieces. Is that still the same now in 2023?
No, that was the 15 multidimensional beings.
15, sorry, yeah, the 15 beings.
So that they're down to about 1 million now. That's how much they've been reduced to. The highest essence of parts are that's all that's left.
And is that mainly in this world, or in the?
It's also in the astral world and the subsurface world too.
Okay, yeah.
Okay? Now that's its own faction. If you were considered like a corporation or board, they would be a board member. They have influence, but they don't have total influence. Okay.
And these are the guys you were saying that you will have to take off their dead cold hands.
Cold dead hands, and then there are those who are not working with them, who have their own version of domination and control here. They've just kind of agreed. The main 11 factions of domination and control agreed they would operate these 26 million timeline life experiments to see if they could change human beings. That's this ongoing mass DNA experiment, but only on our surface population, not astral or subsurface. Okay.
So things like CERN, obviously Wi-Fi, and all these signals are stopping us from having the natural dream time.
Those replaced the Archons because many of the Archons, the majority of their infrastructure was destroyed by mid 2014. They were no longer in charge of who gets in and who gets out. It's now returned to a more natural state.
With how, like, I'd say, because they are quite advanced on the darker side, how are they stupid enough to still be here for what's coming?
Arrogance, vanity,
yeah.
Power corrupts. The proof that they could do it because they're bored. They've been bored for millions of years, and we'll go all the way to the end to prove it. Time is irrelevant. Time is irrelevant to them. That's the scale at which things are manipulating this planet, which is what has to be understood. There are multiple high negative frequency things influencing here. And they've just, for the last few million, agreed to work together. And oftentimes they don't work together at all. They're in open war with each other. Okay? But the one thing they don't break is this DNA experiment rule. Okay? That's why they set up a timeline, police agency, all that stuff, to make sure that their herd was as pure as possible.
I remember you saying, actually, when you talk about them time traveling so easily, I remember you talking about ghosts doing that as well, and actually going back in time to do the hauntings back and forth. And it was such an easy thing, and Grandmaster, and I was just like, oh yeah.
Yep. Alrighty, let's keep playing. Let's go another 5 minutes.
That is all so for those who are more awake, we will be warned. We will see
that among our people that are asleep.
Right, and then we will be able to interpret that correctly as part of the event that's occurring. Correct. Because we're clued in on what we're talking about here.
Exactly. And we're all multidimensional beings experiencing multiple realities. We may not know all about it, but we know enough to go, this is disunity reality, not unity reality.
Exactly, and it's been disunity reality for thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years.
Correct.
Due to the dark and the time and the rest of it. And the Archons, which we talked about a little bit. We also, I wanted to get the mythology of the Anunnaki straightened out.
Okay.
Because according to Sitchin in his work, the Anunnaki came here some several 100,000 to 4,000 years ago. and that was when we were altered genetically and used as a slave race. Now, how much of that is accurate?
Stitchin's first 3 books are very accurate, though his timelines are off.
Okay.
Stitchin's work were co-opted, and the reason why, when Stitchin wrote his books, he had a multidimensional being helping him translate the texts. He was a highly spiritual person that had a purpose to come. His first 3 books, up to the Wars of Gods and Men, are extremely accurate. Time's a little off because Earth has changed time streams so many times. You can't be accurate anymore in those times.
Right.
The Anunnaki were lured here. Their planet, Nibiru, whatever you want to call it, is what's called a free-roaming galactic entity planet.
Okay.
They have a drive inside them that doesn't need a solar system to support it.
Okay.
So they have a different version of a planetary drive. We have a unity consciousness drive.
Okay.
They have a dimensional drive. So the consciousness just needs a leadership society to function psychically with the crystalline technology of the dimensional drive so they can go anywhere they want.
Mm.
And when they go anywhere they want, they can do whatever it is that's within their free will to do.
Mm.
There was a multidimensional being, currently the one that's in charge of all the Arab countries.
Okay.
Its parts are all the heads of the Arab families, the so on and so forth. The decision-making people, and the one layer below the decision-making people, and then their banking families. So that's one being. He's the one that lured them from where they were by creating carrot and stick. So they came to a world and saw leftover technology in a destroyed world. They followed to the next world, to the next world, to the next world, until finally they came to our solar system where there was nobody defending it. Completely empty. All the light and dark forces had petered themselves out and literally couldn't fight anymore. They were done.
Wow.
Earth was abandoned.
Yeah.
Literally abandoned, except for what was left of us before the rise of Atlantis.
Okay.
Lemuria had fallen, multiple timeline wars, species die out, species leave, come back, and all of a sudden it's barren. The Anunnaki come in and go, where's all this technology and a bunch of, primitive-looking people with high spiritual technology? And they go, scratch their head. And that's when they realized that's us. They're DNA related to us. Okay, the being that lured them here, lured them to trap them into this society. To get into Earth's solar system, you need to use the stargates of the sun to get in here. You have to have spiritual relations or DNA relations to get into a solar system. That's essentially how all of them work. The Anunnaki, as a free-roaming galactic planet, came into our solar system, and they never knew they had DNA relations to us, but the being that was luring them did. Trapped them in the incarnation cycle and stripped them of their most powerful psychics and forced them into a reincarnation cycle. And then the second layer, the second most powerful layer, became the new DNA inputs for the skin suit technology that we have here, because they needed the Anunnaki technology, the Anunnaki DNA, and the soul codes, because the Anunnaki had traveled all over the universe with their planet to go anywhere.
Oh, wow.
Well, the main control beings have been trying to collect soul codes. Soul codes determine your DNA and soul relations to a solar system. It determines where you can go. If you're a person that has only lived on 10 planets, you can only go to those 10 planets on a soul level. If you want to go to more, you have to incarnate into all of them. So what these beings were doing were drawing people here that soul codes from all over. So they needed the Anunnaki because they had a piece of the puzzle that would open up this section of the universe, this section of the universe, this section of the universe, so on and so forth. They got pulled in here. Now Stitchin was pretty much right about mining Earth, but it wasn't about the materials. It was literally that the energy that was in the materials needed to go somewhere else, so that the souls that were Earth-based souls who had migrated away would sense the energy of the gold somewhere else and then be lured back into the machine. That's these control. That's how they're playing the system here. The Anunnaki still have free will, but try to understand the scale of the game they got brought into.
Wow. So in a sense, they were there, even though there are no victims. They were in a sense tricked victims, just like the rest of us. So
All right, Dale, what do you think of that?
That was a lot to eat. That a lot to digest. So, with the Nibiru, Anunnaki, and everything like that, so it's like just a booby trap, isn't it? It's just an essence of getting them here, trapping the shit out of them. And how did they escape? How did they get off planet, the Anunnaki?
The same way we do.
Okay.
Raise a society, build ships, and try to get out and see if
See?
you can break the cycle.
Okay, yeah. And we've got a few questions as well in the chat. We've got actually quite
Sure,
a
go
lot.
ahead.
So, what is the impact of international control, timeline manipulation from them air cities and free will? I know we talked about that before. That's an old question, actually.
They don't. The air cities aren't here, and they don't really have any control, any aspects of the control system. The control system is all digital now. The majority of the infrastructure that created the magical process of the 1400s to the 1700s done by the Masons is no longer an infrastructure that works. It's all been transferred to the digital system.
And
That
so who's from Drill 801? Who's the being who lured Anunnaki? Does he have a known name?
Okay, it wasn't one being that was lured here. It was thousands and thousands and thousands of them until it made absolutely perfect scientific sense to them that they had some of their DNA had origin stories from here. Enough of their population had this DNA Earth DNA soul code marker, meaning they just found a planet, and how could our DNA be on it if we've never met it before? Okay, which created the great mystery. How the fuck can this happen? And that's when they got lured into the Time Wars.
So one of the main reasons why they lured the Anunnaki was so they could become DNA relations to them.
Because their soul codes were so vast.
Okay.
The Nibiru had been to millions and millions and millions of solar systems, which means it had soul codes to millions and millions and millions of places that we could outpopulate, because that was what Earth can do. It's a seed planet. You can seed life here and then transport it to other worlds and outpopulate a world.
And can I ask, what's the situation now with the reincarnation grid, with all of the multidimensional beings, only a tiny bit of them here? Is it still us manifesting it more than them controlling it?
It's more in a natural co-creative evolution than it has ever been before. But there are many systems that are constantly slowing down and checking for manipulation, which kind of slows the process down, but they have to do their due diligence now.
So was from J Mac, was the planet Nibiru before it was a free roaming planet apart from our solar system? Then the planet
Where did it originate from?
Yeah.
It originated in another galaxy that was far older than our galaxy. And then it grew in strength and power and earned free roaming galactic citizen in the galaxy that it came from. And then it learned how to gain citizenship in another galaxy by traversing the spaces between galaxies, the void space. And that's where it gained its technology to self. It didn't need a solar system to travel between those spaces. And that the population, even while in void space, could grow with the psychic strengths and still share solid realities in the middles of void spaces, so they could generate their own reality without a background solar system. And they made it to the next galaxy and the next until they made it to our galaxy, and that's why they have millions of soul codes attached to them.
And have they moved on to another galaxy now?
No, they're kind of in stasis right now, because, and like earlier in the episode, we can bring them back. We can go into fear mode again. The thing is, it has other roles to play in linear history to come.
So if someone wanted to go and experience Nibiru as a planet for an experience, what type of experience is it there? What type of flavor does it have?
It's not a pleasant place right now.
Yeah.
Not a pleasant place. It is going through surface rescrambling of reality. So the fabric of reality on the surface can experience these rips and tears where other previous times could bleed through or bleed backwards. So the surface world is very, very difficult to operate in. You can operate in it, but it's extremely dangerous. Now, this has happened on Earth before also, but that's part of the resolution of the time travel wars that have been done. So, Joel, are the super colliders merging our Earth with other versions of Earth where the Illuminati Draco have control of us? You can say that, but there are many other programs that the current Illuminati does not want to share power with other versions of even them themselves. So you have a large variety of domination and control meeting people, other domination and controls, and most of the time they cannot work together. There's too much distrust. And when they do work together and they cross realities, they do become a lot stronger, but it's so much distrust that it rarely, rarely happens. Do do you combine like that?
And that's when you say there's not just one eye, there's loads of eyes, isn't there?
Right, loads of eyes up there.
So from Alan Rain, are some light humans here now who had Anunnaki versions of themselves and are now working to reverse the damage they caused? So
Yes,
whether
yes, there are. Yes, there are. And there are a lot of pureblood Anunnaki, even though they didn't enter a pureblood lineage. There are certain Anunnaki who have figured out how to game the background galactic system. So if you have planned a series of quality, good lives in which you're truly able to give back to society, you can earn points and somewhat get out of jail free lifetime cards, like you do in Monopoly, where you can go and fix certain lifetimes or do something that will change the course of human events to a positive relation. So you have that in place, which changes again once again the rules of what a Nibiruian can do here. Okay, or an Anunnaki. Not all Anunnaki come from Nibiru either. That's another thing to understand. They have a vast pool of DNA that they can call relations to.
is that in this universe, the Anunnaki?
It's fair to say that they have versions of themselves in other universes
Yeah.
and are aware of it and can have commerce with each other. Interuniversal commerce does exist. It's an exchange of wisdom. So there's another part to the question. How much longer do we have to be in this prison? This isn't a prison. And as long as you think it's a prison, you'll never see its original purpose. They want you to think it's a prison, but it's a training ground. It's a training ground on how to be a god, not a false god, one that has the capacity through the DNA to live extremely long periods of time, do all sorts of mystical, unique experiences, and train other species how to do it on their own. How to come together and be healers, thinkers, mathematicians, philosophers, and great teachers, and warriors when needed.
Just think how different this planet would be if 80% of people were happy and were
Imagine if
living.
50% were happy.
Yeah, even that, how different the reality would be.
Right.
How's your day? Yeah, really good. Normally, how's your day? Shit. Been to work, it's shit.
Exactly. So, does planet Nibiru and a piece of planet that blew up in our solar system orbit it out of our solar system? No. It is in another reality now and was purposely moved there and forced to stay there so that we don't recreate it in our reality out of our fear manifestations. Annabelle, you mean which warriors? The warriors, the Anunnaki warriors? What? Because they were some of the most very powerful warriors that taught human beings war. Yeah, at a very destructive level. Imagine, training troops to have your ability to manipulate the kinetic force of a punch or a kick or a strike or make a wall a kinetic blast that could, be like 1,000-pound brick dropping on someone's head. Okay? They're called brutal kinetic warriors. And a few hundred of them could take over a planet. Lisa, no, they're not really at it. They're not fighting as much as you think they are. Many of those fights have already been had, and they've spent their loads already on the millions of years of doing battles here. All right, so let's go ahead and play the rest of it.
Now the Anunnaki would they be reptilian in nature, or draconian, or?
That's the thing. They already had enough skin suit technology that they're a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Not everything,
Okay.
but they had enough.
Okay.
I mean, they looked similar to humans,
Okay.
but there were several breeds of them that chose different DNA patterns, even though they were the same species. They could do anything they wanted to their DNA.
And was it the Anunnaki or these original 15 beings that developed the genetics that could present as a light being? In other words, they've taken the best of the genetics of all the races and created a false light matrix.
Correct. False light matrix essentially began by bringing the Anunnaki here.
Okay.
Okay. False light beings, false light technology was literally created by the Anunnaki and then spread to the rest of the planets of domination and control.
Wow.
Remember I said there's womb chakras?
Mm-hmm.
That if you live on that surface, the planet interacts with you.
Mm-hmm.
You bring a DNA master and a Anunnaki weapons master and you put them there next to a pyramid that raises their consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to create? Mass weapons of war,
Right.
Mass consciousness, technological DNA devices that can be spread to an industrial system of domination and control planets.
Wow. So, in a sense, Earth has become like a breeding ground for domination and control of the rest of the galaxy.
Because of the chakras, the womb chakras here. We have 200.
Okay.
And that is unique. And beyond you, there are other planets out there that have womb chakras, but they all have 3 or 4.
Wow.
Okay, we have 200.
Wow. Wow. And now, what about our own chakras? There's a whole controversy about us having 7 chakras, 12 chakras, and then George Cavazos brought up the idea that the chakras were installed as ways of gaining access to us from the dark side.
It is right, and it is also wrong.
Okay.
We have so many first species of Earth. Where do you start?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It is right for 1, 2, 3, but 17th or 34 have 185 chakras.
Wow.
19, so on and so forth. We have so many first species.
Okay.
The story is that big.
Wow.
So you give all the credit to George for pointing it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the next phase, all right, you. Okay?
Yeah.
And if there's one first species they wanted to dominate the most, it's because they wanted to breed that species to mass population. And if they did, they needed to control those chakra systems and install domination and control at the chakra level.
Right. And that's done through the incarnation process,
Correct.
right? So what else has been distorted about the incarnation process? And I mean, basically, nobody's graduated for over 400 some thousand years. Okay, so are there individuals? Because it seems to me that there are individuals or beings that look like humans that are not even close to being human, may not even be in soul. That is, they don't have a soul or a. Is it possible for
Biomechanical suits is what you're talking about?
I suppose. Clones.
They're clones. Well, here's the thing. When you create a clone of a person, you actually have a spark of that person in there. We're multidimensional beings.
Right.
When you create a clone, there's a spark of them in there.
Right.
When I function, I have parts in all different parts of dimensions interfunctioning, so that I can be in this zone and doing this. When you create a clone of a person, you have essentially created a spark that has a very similar spiritual contractual pattern to it.
Right.
But it's against the entity's sovereign free will when you just collect its DNA and make a clone of it.
Okay.
So as soon as you create a clone against something's sovereign free will, that entity is in domination and control and has very little of its own sovereignty. So a sentience can come in and out of it at any point. The vast majority of worlds out there, they have commerce that where beings genetically build a suit for a consciousness to broadcast from one planet to another, and then they go into that suit, live there for a while, and then leave that suit, and that suit goes into cold storage for them.
Wow.
Or they unmanifest a body, travel energetically to the planet, and manifest a body somewhere else.
Huh. Well, now we were originally, as we were designed to
Do exactly that.
to do that and to time travel, bilocate, and move it between dimensions and
Right.
so on and so forth. So that probably hasn't, those skills have not existed for hundreds of thousands of years. The fragmentation and the control system that's set up.
Mhm.
So now, how is this all going to get resolved? How are some of the ways that this can be resolved with all these different versions? At some point, doesn't all that have to be unified
Through dream time.
through dream time? Okay.
It always comes back to dream time. The technology of the skin suit was created in dream time by unity consciousness.
Huh. Interesting.
And then you have beings that are hijacking the astral world and creating fake dream times in sacred geometry cities.
Right. And these are most major cities are sacred geometry cities. Aren't they?
Absolutely every one of them.
Every one of them, yeah. So
The road systems are part of the sacred geometry.
the names.
The light posts, the electrical wires, the cable wires. Guess
Right.
what? It's all integrated into that sacred geometry.
Right. So basically, humans don't have much of a chance to awaken at all, unless.
Well, they do. It's about claiming your sovereign free will. You know, before when we were outside, we were talking about, the light worker industry.
Oh,
you know
right,
what?
right.
There's some really powerful light workers out there, and I have a little something to say to them. We can't be cheerleaders anymore. We have to be proactive. We have to get out there and march. We have to begin to use our natural presence to create sparks of a march, in a unity march. One guy may not like his guy, one guy may not like this other woman's work, but we still, in unity, have to have enough forgiveness to come together, and it's part of the resistance of free Earth.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so for that. And that means putting aside any perceived differences, and that brings up the ego.
Absolutely.
That, so many New Age people are, in love with their own creations.
We're lost in light, love, and bliss.
Right.
In our inner ignorant, blissfully ignorant of reality.
Yeah, right. And so we've lost our edge and our anger.
Yeah.
And we need that fuel. We need to become angry.
Yes.
We need to see the truth. And so it's important when people are pointing out that what's really happening, that lightworkers not say, well, you're just going down a conspiracy path. That we have to be able to see what we're talking about here and understand it in deeper levels, and so that we understand how we can come together in unity consciousness, because that is the key, isn't it?
Absolutely. Unity consciousness doesn't have disagreeers in it.
Right, right.
Okay. Unity consciousness doesn't have a group of cheerleaders.
Right.
It has everybody, in a metaphorical term, with a sign that has a pitchfork on one, and another sign that has a torch on the other.
Right.
I'm not saying create violence. I'm saying
right.
The signs speak all the metaphor languages you need. One sign's a pitchfork, one sign's a torch. You have 10,000 people in the streets of America doing that. They know the mob is back. The mob has always been they've been defeated by.
Now, how do we know what to do with our information when we know that the control system is set up to recognize when somebody gets too much light or they're getting too close, it's like grass growing. They can see that there's
Something growing quick.
yeah, and they just cut it down.
Yep.
Isn't that how it
It
works?
comes to claiming their sovereign free will and using it and respecting it at every level. I came up with some spiritual removal contract documents for banking, for government, and for media.
Oh, good.
And I'll be putting another one out, how to reaffirm your spiritual contract to Earth sentience, separate system of domination and control. And I encourage people to have those, add your own to it. It is a framework.
Yeah.
And that framework is to use the words to empower yourself so that you understand using your sovereign free will is how you separate yourself from the rotten soul family that has been force incarnated with us.
Right. And do you have a website for that?
Yeah, andrewbartzis.com.
Perfect. So 2011 to 2014 is that we're in this time frame now. What happens? So there will be people that may not even be aware of what's going on. The 2015 will come, 16, 17, and 18.
They will be in dream time, though.
In dream time. All
And
right.
when they're ready to come out, it'll only be like a few minutes or seconds past.
Right, because that will actually be that.
They're suspended and held into dream time until ready.
Right.
But Earth will be breaking into local realities again.
Oh,
When the armies began to march for Rome, for China, for Mongolia, they were conquering each local reality.
Mhm.
And as they conquered all of them, they made roads to all of them and linked them to sacred geometry cities.
Mhm.
They took away the unity consciousness and made disunity consciousness world.
Mhm.
Because they were all centralized location to the networks of roads and dominating cities.
And that's also connected to the ley lines, right?
Correct.
So
it was
did-
to overwrite the ley lines.
Overwrite them, yes.
To
They have
overwrite
been
them.
overwritten. So all these people that are doing ley line work, are they doing anything positive? I mean, are they actually...
Oh, they are doing very
Okay.
positive work. The energy of Earth has gone from seventh dimensional to sixth dimensional to fifth to fourth to where we are now, low third.
Yes.
Because if we have any power, our weed grows really fast and they got to chop it down.
Right.
So grid work, absolutely important.
Okay.
If we had people out there that were in some type of unity to do grid work with 5,000 people at a time and 1,000 target one ley line, another 1,000 target another, in based off of a calendar system, you can change the way the ley lines create energy for all of our brothers and sisters of this world. The ley lines create the energy pattern for consciousness to expand.
Okay.
It's also the XY axis for astral projection. We've had thousands of societies and civilizations that all they did was watch those stars. And the stars that they watch aren't the same stars we watch today.
Right.
Because reality is perceived through your culture. We're a media-driven culture now. They own our oral traditions. Our
Right.
oral historians were taken away. We still have some now that are out there trying to promote it, but the people that are born into the TV generation, the media generation, that's their oral history.
Right.
And it's not your mother and father much anymore.
Right.
That's where it has to change. People like me coming out and doing the oral recording of the Akashic record. Not in a trance. You can communicate and talk to them. I'm a real person.
Right. And you can get the facts.
I'm not channeling. I'm not anything like that. I'm simply in the Akashic record in a sacred neutral perspective. If I see something that's evil and dark in the Akashic record, it doesn't hurt me because it's just information.
Right.
If I allow myself to go in polarity to be affected by it, I can't read the Akashic record anymore.
Right.
It
That
must
makes
be a
sense.
neutral recollection, recalling of it.
Yeah. And then that brings up the idea of working very diligently on our judgments.
Yes.
Because once we move into judgment, we move into polarity consciousness, and we're then in duality. So it's not that ego is bad. It's just that
It's a survival tool.
right, and we are coming from survival because it's being thrown at us left, right, and center, and every which way in our dream time. So, well, it looks like we're about ready to take another break, and we will return with Andrew Bartzis, and we will be talking more about this stuff. Okay.
Wow. Well, Dale, let's unpack that.
There's a hell of a
You wanna
lot to
start?
unpack. It wasn't just you were talking about one thing; it was a mixture of various things. But there's quite a few questions I have for you, and one of them is listening back to you and when you talked about the light workers and them coming together, creating the kind of warrior movement to make change. Is your thoughts of that change throughout the years of
Oh
experiencing?
yes. And
Yes.
you will hear parts of me holding back to not call light workers names then. And then you will hear me call them names, yes. And I don't remember if I said it in 17 or 19, I am not a light worker anymore. I don't consider myself that. It's I believe it is in this series, or it was some of the stuff I did after, or shortly afterwards.
Okay. And what does it
Maddie, are
feel?
you there?
Maty came and went.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh no, he's here. Sorry,
Oh.
Maty.
Yeah, I made it.
Were you able to listen to any of it?
Oh, just just a bit at the end, and I was trying to formulate a question, but there's nothing coming straight at hand. There's a lot of information, a lot of dense information as well.
So I know that one's packed. That 15 minutes is like, I'm just here. You go.
Yeah.
Here you go. All in pure frequency. Deal with it. I was ruthless with my frequency then. I didn't care for some of the things the effects that might put into people, because it put a lot of people to sleep.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like literally, they'd hear 6 minutes or 3 minutes and out. Could never get past episode 1. Knock them out.
Some of us, it woke us up.
Yes.
Yeah. Back then, Lightworker was a new term, brand new term.
That's what I was going to say. Back in 2013 or whatever, you did it. Jesus, it was a different world.
It was.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking about when I was looking at when you're talking about some of the technology and that, and our technology has come on so far since in that 10 years as well. The way that we use technology and social media, has that had an effect on the harvesting systems?
It's made them more effective.
I thought it would be. Are they separate systems, or are they now combined? The digital and the existing system.
So the infrastructure of brick and mortar magic no longer functions correctly.
Right.
It's all digital. Yeah. So if the digital were to break down and all its backups were to break down, they could not use the magical system.
Yeah.
It still does work, but could not handle the load of what they needed to do.
Yeah. Especially in an awakening scenario.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's why they need projects like CERN that could occupy our psychic awareness.
Yeah.
Because every time it turns on, everybody in the whole reality goes, "Stop that!" And they go, "Prove it. Show us you can stop it."
Enter the squirrel or whatever it was. It was squirrel.
The weasel.
The weasel.
The weasel.
Yeah, the CERN destroyer.
Enter the weasel.
That's definitely merch needing to be manifested.
Yes.
100%.
Enter the weasel. I fucked CERN.
The Weasel Medicine series.
We'll start to save the Weasel Foundation just because of the one weasel that took down CERN. I think it was on one of the comedy shows. We made like a fake background history to it. It was Earl the Weasel, made it all the way in. Did a speed run of it.
I actually told that to a guy who's fairly conspiracy, not too much, but I was bringing it up and I told him about it and he was like, "Shut up. What? I don't believe that." And he looked it up and it was true. I was like, "Yeah, look at that shit." Stumps a lot of people, that.
Yes, it does. It stumps a lot of people, and that's why the weasel did
it. A weasel did what? There'll be a good T-shirt of having CERN like in this form of a human, and this weasel just humping the back of it,
saying, "Hurry up, humans!"
Yeah. And the weasel took CERN down for like 8 months. It caused over $1 billion in damage. I think it was like 4.5 billion at the end.
I wonder what precautions they have now for weasel attack.
Who the fuck knows?
I wonder what protection they have. Someone's on Weasel Watch. They've employed a few people to go on Weasel Watch.
Got to watch for weasel sign. Well, weasel is one of the unique rodents. As long as its head can fit in an area, it can move through a space.
Yeah.
So it probably found a way into the ducting that has wires, that has a little extra space into it. I was just guessing. I don't know, but it figured a way out. Yes, Earl will rise again.
What did they do with
Basically,
the weasel?
Earl made it to the heart of darkness and threw himself into the void to break it up. And now he's trapped in time. Save Earl!
Save Earl.
Save Earl! Shut down CERN.
There's a huge party for the weasel,
Yes.
the graduation. You did it.
Hey, that's an otter.
That's an otter.
That's an otter.
Actually, I think that's an American weasel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened? Do you know what happened to the weasel? Did it die in its mission?
Yeah, it died in its mission,
Of course, yeah.
Fucking
But
light
it
worker martyr.
is exalted on the other side.
It was a light worker martyr.
Yes. Not a light worker, do it. Therefore, I'll incarnate as a weasel and get it done.
I'm not going to do this as a human. Fuck it, weasel.
So apparently, from what I understand, it was chewing on some high voltage wires and got about 4 million volts through it.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Poof.
Just think what 2 weasels could have done. If 2 of them would have got it.
Instead of Ocean's 11's Weasels 12, Weasels 2. 2 weasels, 1 CERN. Who wins? The fight to the death.
Do you imagine the weasel's life review afterwards, watching it what it did?
Yes, if you would have gone right here, you would have died. Somehow you made it all the way through the tunnel to the end without dying.
So when you read this kind of information, Andrew, when you were looking at it back then, how much of it has kind of changed?
You're talking the material itself?
Yeah.
Not much has changed other than how the ongoing stories have made it out into public discourse, but be it conspiracy, philosophy, or channeled material.
And the way that you tell it now has changed, obviously, because there's certain parts of that narrative that you just don't discuss any longer.
There are certain parts of the narratives I just don't discuss any longer, but now there's a language in which any form of studied or lay person can understand. If you listen to a handful of the material, you can. The language is used in many other places, and that's part of Galactic History. It actually seeded a language form that many others adapted.
Yeah, such as ourselves. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Because you had to process it, and then part of your processing thing is how do you tell others the same information and let them process it the same way you do? It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's the whole purpose of Galactic History. The one was to change the foundation of language enough so you could talk about bigger subject matters.
Yeah.
What's it like for you listening back to yourself back then?
I was ruthless with my frequency.
You were.
I said I can't limit myself in this. I have to show the limitless perception. Then I just kept it on and on and on and on and turned it up and up and up and up and up and up and up until like level 14, 15. It's pretty highly engaging to other people's otherworldly experiences, because I'm not just talking to the person listening to it in this reality. All the other versions of themselves are hearing it through their dream frequency, which is then spreading it to multiple realities and dimensions and time streams.
What time of day did you particularly do these? In the morning or evening?
No, we started around 10 a.m. and would just do a half hour and go till about 4. And we did this on Solstice 2013. And so we had Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. While I was running an event at a thing, I was recording this stuff. I was actually running a live event on the mountain, doing ceremony, doing healings, and doing actual galactic history classes in a like conference room. So I was very busy, very fucking busy.
Have you peeked into what type of effect the Galactic History has had? Sorry,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. It's had the effect that's got me here today. Today, the amount of people that it's reached is far beyond that I could ever imagine. I
You
have
got me here
input.
today.
I have impacted the colloquial now language of 10 years later. I'm not the only one that's done it. I was one of the many contributors.
Yeah.
Okay. To up high educational world. Okay. That was stuck in mediocrity.
Just think as well. I think back then when I found you, if it was now, I wouldn't have found it because of how fucked up YouTube is now.
Right.
Totally different.
Exactly.
And the amount of people who naturally find you through synchronicity, and not those fuckers are just completely.
Like if somebody could find the original publication of the Galactic History series, I think the whole video, all 20 videos are, I don't know, like 18 million hits, 19 million hits, something like that. But YouTube's purged so many channels, that original channel's gone. As far as I know, unless somebody has it private or unlisted.
So let's have a look at some questions, guys.
Yeah.
We don't seem to have one. So here's one. It's from JMac. How do you feel about the theory of primal sound fields plus 15-dimensional time matrix that run in sets of 3-dimensional realities? True or false?
So I'm going to say the nature of the question, the answer will be false. So primal sounds are DNA based. Something has to know what it's hearing to be primal. So there's a consciousness that's already created it through an experience of time. Now, as for it being able to go through multiple dimensions, it could. That doesn't mean it will. It's all about how the conscious is going to process it. Now, as a three-dimensional reality, a three-dimensional manifestation is what everything from the other realms are trying to do here. So if you were to find a primal being in third dimensional energy giving out a primal growl, what will it do to those listening to it who have the DNA to know that it should be fear, help, wellness, something positive, something negative? That primal energy influences a reaction, a system-based reaction. There's just more to be understood under time and how dimensions and densities work. There are certain dimensions that have very little density to them, and only a handful of beings can operate in them.
So
Next.
question from Alan Ryan. Do sparks of the same being meet up on Earth in a wake as well as Dreamtime? Do they look alike or are they just clones?
So they could be twins.
Yeah.
So that was back during the cloning part of the early part of the episode. So they could be twins, natural twins, fraternal or maternal, whatever. They could also be, I'm born into an American family, you're born into a Pakistani family, but we can share soul spark. That does happen out there.
Mm.
That doesn't mean that's your true love. We have more than one body. Like right now, there are other me's. They don't look exactly like me, or they may look similar to me, but they have all different forms of lives running. Everybody here has more than one life running. We are not linear time beings. That's a primal understanding. Is as we begin to detox from linear time as a perception so that we can see how our other multidimensional linear, nonlinear lives work.
It's just another one of those concepts that's been bastardized by the lightworker community, so people can't really understand it properly.
That's right.
I'm just trying to see if there's any more coming here.
So Nate wants to know how many multidimensional beings are left. 2, and a little over than 1 million are left. If you were to put them all in these physical bodies.
That is not a lot.
No. Well, technically it's 1.5. But we'll just call it 2.
Yeah.
Have any of them been recycled?
Yes, several chose recycle. A couple took on the job of being a galactic co-creator, like on the job training to see how bad it actually was, and none of them were able to do the job.
So the ones that are left, they're fully.
So basically, Source said, "You want the job? Take it. There you go. Here's. Let me give you the. This is what you got to handle," and they couldn't do it.
No. So the ones that are left, Andrew, these ones are fully invested. They can't leave.
They can't leave. Yeah. They're their aspect, the zealotous aspects that started and will end it.
Yeah, they're fucked.
Yeah.
So they'll get Genghis Khan at some point.
How many divine beings have you met in the last year? Each and every one of you are a divine being through my perception.
Absolutely.
You just don't realize your own power yet.
Yeah. There really isn't such a thing as a non. When you look at it from that perspective, everybody has an unseen world, and the way that we engage in the unseen is you know, it is divine in nature. It's just the reality that we're in doesn't support that belief system.
Right. And part of us is to become divine beings and to go out to the rest of the universe and teach them how to be divine beings too. Yeah. Where all the secrets that were learned here, good and bad, can be retaught to those so they don't have to go through genetic manipulation to get it.
Mm.
So I hate using the word so everyone realistically becomes an ascended master.
No. That's a term specifically used for here.
Okay, yeah.
I've mastered the way of time traveling here in a single lineage.
What is the term source being?
We are source beings. We're source concentrated beings. We have a concentrated spark of force of universal spark in us.
Yeah, which the awakening will take to something different, a new level. Which
we talked about in this episode. It'll start in the dream time.
Yeah.
Everybody's local dreams will begin like how many times do we say, you know, whenever there's going to be solar storms, everybody has problems sleeping.
Yeah.
Okay. That's because shit's going on.
Yeah.
And are we all going to become first species of Earth in the dream time?
Say that again.
Are we all going to become the first species of Earth? Because I remember you.
Technically, but it won't be looking like that.
Okay.
Because every first species has an original home world or a descendant of that home world in which they can go and call home. They don't need to be refugees anymore. Even though Earth has taken them on, they can reclaim their lost heritage. And part of Earth's graduating force will help those find their lost heritage and regenerate that world.
And this is why we need the access to the inner Earth first. This is why we've got those guys.
That's right.
And is it still a drama chaos in the inner Earth at the moment?
No. There is a sense of calmness, but there is not a sense of peace.
Yeah.
No one's openly drawing blood right now. Should they? That's a personal choice at this particular point. Everything's on a critical mass tipping point, whatever word, in so many different directions. You have to be so careful about what you do now. That's why everything is being focused on getting loose off-world past the dimensional blockades that are going on.
And so
that loose on the other side, in their view, is going to be worth 10,000 times of what it'll be worth after here. It's like a wine.
I remember
Okay?
we had a conversation about Lelouch for a long time. Last time I saw you, it was a long conversation about Lelouch.
Yeah.
So, what was the question I had? It just completely gone out of my head now. I thought about the Lelouch topic.
Told you I'd burn you out.
I'm not burnt out. I was just, when I'm thinking that all of a sudden I thought you were talking about Lelouch and it just kind of disappeared out of my head.
That episode was packed full of shit.
Yeah.
Was there a tiger feline race in Earth? Yes, there's many. Yes, they've been wiped out and come back many times. Ha ha, ha ha. Yes. There are many cat-like species in Earth. Many, many, many. But you also got to remember there are many species who do not need to have one body. They could have whatever body they need at the moment. So they could be a cat one day, a dog the next day, a human the next day, or be 10 humans, 5 cats, 4 dogs, and 17 realities. They're not limited.
So this was a question I wanted to ask. So with the inner Earth and all of the solar flares coming up, and I remember you said it's going to get more and more throughout the years. Is that when they're not going to be able to exist in the inner Earth? When the more, say, in like 5-6 years' time, when there's more and more solar flares, is there going to be a time where they're like, oh shit, I can't exist in here anymore?
It's all about, does the technology they created down there work?
Okay.
Stuff they've been planning for 10,000, 100,000 years, knowing that this awakening can come. And awakenings don't just happen here. They've happened around the galaxies and universes for a long time. Okay? This one is just a particularly complicated one. Okay? That's why so many souls have been attracted to here, because what you get on the other side is worth it. How do solar flares affect the inner Earth? Well, it charges the energy up in the inner Earth, and it forces energy into their systems, which makes them have to do things, make manifestations, not necessarily go to war, but do things.
Yeah.
They have to use that energy or it'll start damaging their own bodies.
Lights a fire up their ass.
Yeah. Lots of bitch slapping contests.
Like having Viagra. You got to do something.
Have you ever seen the Russian slap-offs?
No.
Oh my God. Maty, have you seen those?
I have, and the dwarf ones and the women's ones, and they're awful. It's so dangerous.
Yes. So if anybody wants to have a moment of what the fuck is humans done in Russia, go onto YouTube and type in face slapping competition Russia. Okay? Yeah. And you'll see people get slapped so hard they instantly are knocked out, like a boxer knocked them out. Another one's, holy shit, he just took that straight up.
Uh-huh.
The UFC are actually doing that. Dana White's doing slap, isn't he? It's like
he has something to do with it, because it's actually become a very profitable sport in Russia right now. Yeah. A lot of betting on it.
It's so bad because when they slap him, they get him rid of the meat on the hand. It's just a punch. Yes. That's all it is.
It's an open hand slap. Yeah.
Dangerous.
Not the best for brain damage.
No.
Well, a couple people have died from a single slap.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what the karma was there.
Slap karma.
So a guy slapped the shit out of him and I'm alive.
Exactly. So, Maty, do you have any reflections on what Galactic History meant for you? Because there are people who haven't heard about how you interacted with it when you first heard it.
Well, what I did is I really did the lightworker thing where I just regurgitated the whole thing. But in that process, it was very useful. You know, our lightworker times, they do service. As long as we don't go too far down the trap, as long as we find our way out from it. But for me, I regurgitated it, but it allowed me a process of really assimilating and understanding what I'm saying. So as I began to try to explain what I'd listened to you say to other people, it began to unpack for me in a greater way. And there's still so much in there that is just beyond what we can really discuss openly, because you're going to have to explain a whole different type of mechanics to everybody and before they can even begin to grasp a lot of it.
Right.
But one of the things that stuck out for me was when we were listening to that, and I'm sure Dale will concur with me here, we were just trying to find out, when's the awakening happening? When do I get off of this fucking cycle? And
what was I telling you? What was I telling you? You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You gotta wait.
You gotta wait. But all we all heard was 2014.
No. Between 2011 and 2014 would decide how long it would take.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's what I said.
And I remember that process where it actually, the end of that part, and as it's unfolded now, to me, there's a lot of stuff that you talked about that's happening in my individual hologram and some other people's individual holograms, but yet I see people who are long-term awakened, newly awakened, almost awakened, who just, they're so far away from some of these processes. So obviously, in the 10 years since I've assimilated that information, it continues to unpack, but on a personal level, instead of a process of trying to understand and reiterate. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's what I was telling Dale earlier, that when I was asked how far has it reached and has it been successful, the answer is yes, because it got you to exactly what I was trying to say. It got you to discover language, and how to describe something from your own point of view, and that's what needed changing. That's why I've said I've come here 100 years ahead of time to change the language. Okay.
And how many things I've done recently, Andrew, that you've been around, and you didn't guide me to them, you didn't lead me to them at all, but I was able to explain them to you and you back because I had that terminology.
Not just that, I watched you go through the experience.
Yes.
Okay. I had an eyeball on you, and I'm like, hey, he's doing it. Look at that. The other day, Dale had his own Grandmaster of the Obvious moment. Yeah. He was with a client, and you're just like, you had your own Grandmaster of the Obvious with them.
Yes. Yeah. All I was doing was just giving them the obvious, and that's the full session was just giving them the Grandmaster of the Obvious. And afterwards, I was like, "Holy fuck! I didn't do any psychic surgery there. It was just showing them the obvious answer to their issues and how they can get out of mediocrity into that kind of infinite state."
But that's information surgery at that point.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perception surgery.
Perception, deception, surgery.
Yeah.
So for those people in the chat, and there's quite a lot of you, type in if you've watched Galactic History, all of them. It'd be interesting to know who's watching, who's watched it, and who hasn't.
And it takes skill to be able to formulate a question from all of that. There's so much information there, but it takes real skill to formulate one decent question from it. That's how dense this information is. It's very easy to listen to it, but you try and expand on it and see how far you get. That's so ahead of its time.
Six.
Galactics must look at it and say, man, humanity is crazy. They have their own version of it.
Yes, and they have their own version of it, yes.
If any of you guys want to hear Andrew talk about more the years of when it's happening and that information, there was a Talking Stick show about a year ago where we hit Andrew. I was full on asking a few lightworker questions at that time, but Andrew, it was that time where he was just answering all of them. It's on, when was it, Maty? We did that show. Do you remember?
Oh, I can't remember.
Do you remember, Andrew?
No, I don't remember. It was a while back. I think we've had a few different Destroy the Lightworker shows.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have anything else they want to bring up?
No, I do apologise. I wasn't able to really get in on this one, and they're so dense anyway that you really need to pay attention to what's being said in order to formulate a question. So I'm afraid I failed there, guys. There was too much distraction going on.
Just ask what your purpose is, Maty.
Well, to be distracted.
If you run out of questions. So we've got a lot of people who've watched it. Loads listening. Is there any way of putting in the first episode into the chat? I'm going to go see if I can do that.
Because this is the challenge for people coming in now. Anybody who's new to the material or who's been new to material since, say, maybe lockdown time, you know, the challenge is the ball's very much in your court, because this dense information is out there. Andrew hasn't reiterated it and reiterated it. You know, we had this moment, and it was up to us to unpack it. And lots of people ask me, why doesn't Andrew go back to the basics? Why doesn't he teach us how to understand these terms? Because some of these terms are too vast. But the truth is, it's already there. It's already there. It's all on YouTube.
So, guys, you've got the first episode link in the chat. So if you're not familiar with the Galactic History, Part 1 is there for you.
That was a very special time. That, you know, the radio shows with Lance White and all the other shows that you were doing.
The world was a lot more innocent then,
wasn't it, Justin? We didn't think it. We was you know, felt very sorry for ourselves. A lot of us.
It was a very dark world, and we were an innocent light in a dark world.
Yeah.
Coming out of to the point, like I remember saying many times in 2013, there are stuff I can say today. 5 years ago, I couldn't say without being, you know, killed, or offed somehow, or removed, or forced to say something different. And now I can, you know, anybody can openly speak it, and they don't care because they want it as part of the content. So no one will ever know the real truth.
Because
well, a lot of people seem to have an aversion to it, because I know for myself and Dale, because we've had this discussion, we didn't understand the material, but the structure of the material had not only a truth frequency to it, but a genius behind it that we could see. However, the material does seem to have the opposite effect for some people.
Sure, because many of them are influenced by their perception. Influence is deceived by the perception this is a prison world. It's not. It's not a prison world.
Yes, and so many people go down the path of conspiracy that as soon as they hear information, it's a conspiracy.
That's right.
Because it doesn't fit in with the narrative that they've believed.
That's right.
Which was the wonderful thing for me about you, Andrew, when the shows were a different format, because you know, any subject matter anybody was discussing, I always knew you would have a completely different perspective on it, something completely unique.
De-weaponed the shit out of it most of the time.
Yeah, well, but it made most people look like child's play, didn't it, Dale?
Yes.
Really?
The charge came off it, which was great, because I remember all the COVID times, something happened, then you were looking forward to hearing what your perspective was on it. And it was just always de-weaponizing it and going back to the core teachings of looking after yourself.
Yep. Well, everybody else was saying it was hearsay, right? Everything else was hearsay. You had a whole host of these people like Cobra, Benjamin Fulford. Oh gosh, you know, we could list them on and on and on. And it was all these mysterious characters who had this information, and then it was just repeated and constantly and regurgitated all over the place as fact. Whereas Andrew wasn't doing that. Andrew was saying, here's this information, believe it or don't.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you can't feel this frequency, you're fucked.
Yeah. Because in a way, it seems like a long time, 10 years, but it also doesn't. The changes that have happened in that decade are quite incredible for those who can see it, for those who have experienced it.
And those who have the courage to do the inner work.
Yeah, exactly.
Themselves.
Right. Inner work.
Mm-hmm.
And this stuff, then this stuff, and then this stuff becomes easy.
Yeah. And the journey at large that you discussed, this is another fascinating layer about it, is that yes, you gave all of those descriptions, all of those, not stories is the wrong word, but all of that information, but yet as my personal evolution has happened, not that much of it related directly. My own story, and this is where you've always said all along, Andrew, is that we've more than we've ever heard, read or studied. And as that comes to reality in our own story, in our own hologram, and our own evolution, we realize that, you know, the scales at which this goes to. And that kind of information that you presented was just a snippet, a peek into a certain era of creation. But each one of us comes from a multitude of other different creations, and we all bring that story. So the importance was having that language to be able to define our own stories, our own evolution as it occurs.
Yeah. You know what might be a really good one to do a review of is the Mystery Schools product.
Ah,
That would be really cool.
I have the original videos, which I might put together. We'll make that into a webinar or something like that. Because that one really, it takes everything I said in Galactic History and then gives you the double whammy to the left and the double kick to the nuts. Because that's where I explain lineages to the nth degree and how you can leapfrog through lineages and Genghis Khan, Bruce Lee, all that other stuff. Well, I think we're at the end of the show, guys. So, Dale, why don't you give a way for people to get a hold of you?
So if you want to head over to daletobin.com, if you'd like me to be the Grandmaster of Obvious of your reality and do some soul surgery and help you find a pathway back to yourself, bring you back onto this timeline and make you feel good after, head over to daletobin.com and book a session with me. I also have psychic surgery dates coming up, and I will have the psychic surgery training as a product on my website at some point. So yeah, thank you again, Andrew. Thank you, Maty, and for those listening, an incredible show.
Maty, give a way for people to get a hold of you. Oh, he's not here.
Is he? He's gone back.
You go to
He's
Maty
lost
Waller
the tube again.
at twofeathers.com and contact him there.
I can't
you
do
go
a
to my
Maty
website.
voice. I was good at Laura's, but I can't do Maty's.
You can go to my website, andrewbartzis.com. We have the combined healing therapies that's coming up in New York. Also, I believe September 28th, and then the 1st to the 5th, I believe. You can go to the landing page there. It's actually, if you go and click on the store button and you go down to combined UK combined therapies, you can get all of your information right there. So we do still have spots available. Everyone encourage you, if this is the time of year you want to go through a visionary healing experience, come and get multiple hours of combined therapy while we will be in New York. All right, Joel,
Andrew.
take us away.